Welcome to our first webinar series of the Unconditional Love, the web series presented by Grafted Roots. We are so excited to start the series. We've already come across like 10,000 technological glitches because that is the joy of doing it live. So we welcome you to this space. What we're going to talk about today is settler colonialism. And so let's get started here with hello. We are Grafted Roots. I'll introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Bowman, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hello, my name is Nicole Andrews, and I also use she, her pronouns.
Hello, my name is Julie Brock. I also use she, her pronouns, and I am a white presenting woman wearing glasses, wearing a black shirt, and have grayish hairish.
Thank you all. So, what are we talking about when we talk about unconditional love, right? We at Grafted Roots have really tried to understand what does unconditional love look like, especially when we are moving through systems of oppression and through societies that are oppressive. I'll also just note that I do have two of my dogs fighting for a toy in the background. So we're just gonna acknowledge that that's happening and move through it. Um, so when we think about unconditional love, it's a really hard topic to talk about, grasp, because we're not talking about this fluffy, romantic, or performative type of love, right? This like, yeah, I love you too, hearts, kisses, all of that. No, we really want to talk about unconditional love as a practice of being rooted, right? So it's a thing we do, and we're rooting in equity. And what we mean by equity is that every single person has worth. We have value. Every single body matters, and we're not disposable. We also believe unconditional love means reciprocity. So we need to give and receive. We need to engage in that mutual relationship in order to engage in unconditional love. And then lastly, we believe that unconditional love means humanity. So honoring that shared divinity and dignity of one another, understanding that we are in mutual relationships. So once
Stephanie,
again, oh, yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Have you advanced your slides?
No,
Oh, okay. So we're still on the the
are
cover
you,
slide.
are, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I did. So, not sure. Let's see. We'll go
Right now
here,
we see it in a browser. Okay, now
here.
that is hello. We saw that. Now we're at unconditional love.
Okay, so we saw hello.
We did not see hello. So, since Amanda has come, I
Yeah,
wonder if we just start from here.
they're from hello. Sounds good. Okay.
Okay.
I love all of this. So it's not going to even sound anywhere close to what I had it. All right. Hello. We are Grafted Roots, and we will reintroduce ourselves. My name is Stephanie Bowman, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hello, I'm Nicole Andrews, and I use she, her pronouns. It's good to be with you all today.
And I'm Julie Brock. I use she, her pronouns as well.
All right. So we welcome you into this space. We want to root our gratitude to the land, to those ancestors, and to the community. So today we're not learning in order to fix things, we're learning to remember. What part of today will also mean is we'll have a couple of journal prompts for you all to do some self-reflection and to go through. So I would highly advise if you have a scratch piece of paper and a writing utensil to get those out, and we'll lead you through a couple of prompts. Like for example, we have an example prompt here. What does it feel like in your body to belong? Did it move us? Okay. I love this. Um, Okay, so this is what I was talking about, right? About that unconditional love, not being romantic or performative, but yet it's a practice. It's a tool that we root into what we believe is unconditional love is equity, that every being is inherently worthy. We believe unconditional love means reciprocity. So what we give, we receive. And that unconditional love means humanity, honoring that shared divinity and dignity between us all. It's not a feeling, it's a way of being. And it can't coexist without that, yeah, unconditional love can coexist without systems of domination. And it thrives through deep knowing, connection, and within trust and intuition. Um, Another thing we really want you all to kind of think through as we're moving here is where in your life are you practicing conditional love that requires performance, productivity, or perfection? So I will let's give us a couple of minutes here. And if you wouldn't mind reflecting on that, where in your life are you practicing conditional love? And that means love that requires performance, productivity, or perfection. All right, we'll take one more minute and then we will move on. All right, Nicole, whenever you are ready.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, had a quick moment of couldn't unmute my mic. So, when we are looking at today, specifically in the condition of settler colonialism, and so when we talk about unconditional love, we know that there are systems that separate us from that, right? And so today's focus is on settler colonialism. To really hit this home, we really want to make sure that you know that settler colonialism is not just history, it's a living condition that shapes how we think and how we feel. It is very much a continued practice that we are engaging in. So, as much as it's historic, it is pervasive. It is a system that's based on genocide, colonization, by which indigenous people and land are being replaced with new settler populations. And when we talk about the land and we're talking about it's not just our spaces, we're also talking about our mindsets, our cultures, right, that are being replaced and being conditioned and assimilated into the new settler population. It teaches a separation from the self, from ourself, from the land of others. It's defined through it defines worth through control, productivity, and hierarchy. It also offers us this faux freedom. And that looks like comfort within our systems of harm and compliance. It is a conditional comfort. So when we think about why are we in this race? What is life, right? What's the purpose? at the end of the race, we think we're going to receive the space of freedom where we can practice our living our lives out loud. And this full freedom typically is met with access without liberation. It's security without sovereignty. It's a conditional comfort. So we want you to think about, and we're not going to take too much time to look at this. We're going to do it in our second prompt, but we want you to just think as you reflect on this slide, where have I accepted comfort that cost someone else their dignity or belonging? Because there is a practice that we all have to take an accountability of, what do I do to participate in this? Although I may not have actively chosen settler colonialism, I am now here in it. And is there something that I'm doing for my own comfort that costs someone else their dignity? So for example, I choose to have a manicured lawn versus prairie grass on the land. Instead of using what's the indigenous life on this land and what naturally grows here, I'm going to go bring in some Kentucky bluegrass because I think it looks prettier. We think about it in corporate charity versus mutual aid, access without liberation. If you can look at another person and believe that they should die, this is internalized colonization versus a collective approach that includes community focus, and community expertise. So, I'm sorry, I'm missing my other reflection prompt. Oh, never mind. We are gonna. I apologize, y'all. I'm in one of those days where I'm like, I remember everything we just said 2 minutes ago, and then I don't. So we're gonna move to the next slide, I believe.
Yeah, well, can I stay on this for a second? So,
yes, please.
okay. Yeah, so when we talk about this concept of faux freedom, right? It's the freedom that we have been told to believe will get us access to all of these different areas. And so, right, as Nicole was talking about this example of land, when we talk about settler colonialism, a lot of people immediately go to land ownership, land development as a piece of it. And yes, it is a piece of it. And you know, at times too, we go into the dramatics of like, well, does that mean I have to give up my home and then I need to move and all of that? And we're not talking about making giant changes. If you want to, feel free to do so, right? If not, we really want to focus this unconditional love on takeaways that you can actually do that will be anti-colonial in nature, right? So settler colonialism makes us believe that if we have a manicured lawn, we are then meeting prestige, we are meeting the standards of maybe what would be in our HOA, or you know, even conversations of like some communities, if the grass gets above 6 inches, you get the cops called on you. So now we have law enforcement being involved for checking the length of grass. So all of these things are part of that colonial mindset. So what we want you to really focus on are, what are ways in which I can engage in anti-colonial mindsets that will allow the land to restore. And one of the examples we have here is, you know, planting a prairie grass or a native pollinator garden, because the earth will set itself back. She knows how to fix herself. We just need to get out of the way. So if we stop putting chemicals in our lawn, if we, you know, take out the turf and just put in seeds, the piece of land that you have will resettle itself. With then you'll get more native bees, which will get more native bugs and butterflies, and then birds get to come into the picture. And the ecosystem will balance itself out when we as people get out of the way. And so through this conversation, I really want you to think about, in what ways am I using colonization to stop nature from just doing its own thing. Um,
Thank you, Steph.
yeah, go ahead.
So, understanding our role in this condition, I think what Stephanie said is incredibly important that we are participating in it, but we all participate a little bit differently, right? Um, and the way that that shows up is in privilege, in our silence, in our fear, or our survival. We know that privilege exists on a continuum. We all have access to it, but the ways in which we have access to privilege looks vastly different across the spectrum. And so we need to think about, how am I engaging in settler colonialism, whether it's through my privilege, is it through silence, is it through fear, or is it for my own survival and protection? Our roles in this is not about, it's not about our guilt, but what our awareness and responsibility. So where can I leave this? I don't have to sit in guilt and shame, but I do need to sit in awareness, and then I have to take action. Awareness creates a space for transformation. Guilt only recreates the wound. So if we want to fester in guilt, if we want to sit there and mull over what are the things that I've done, and I can't get out of this, we also kind of alleviate ourselves from the responsibility of making action, because we really just want to sit in the emotions of what we have caused or what we have participated in. And so we really are hoping that with awareness, there now becomes the added layer of I can take action. So we want you to take a moment and journal. In what ways have I inherited or upheld colonial ways of being in my relationship, work, or self concept? And as you journal, as you think about this, pause and think about one colonized belief about yourself that you may be holding in this moment, that you're ready to kind of question. Give about 30 more seconds to finish up what you're writing. Okay. So this is not all doom and gloom, right? This webinar is about hope
Mm.
and the hope of how we can return as much as it is about let's learn what exists and what are these conditions. We actually have a way of starting to move into anti-colonization, right? And so what that looks like is deconstructing and disconnecting. To return to unconditional love, we must deconstruct and disconnect from colonial patterns. And this is a process. Let's be really, really aware and give ourselves some grace in these moments. We have many years of programming and conditioning and ways of being that have both been passed down to us and have been given to us by society. And we're consistently swimming in the culture of settler colonialism. And it is a practice that we have to put into place as we start to deconstruct and disconnect. And so I hope that we are here to stand with you to offer you grace as you go through this process. So one of the first things that you can do is thinking of that we have in our colonized mindsets is productivity as proof of work. Julie wrote a wonderful blog post about hustle culture, and hustle culture can definitely be tied to the fact that our self-worth is tied to what we do and how much of it we do, right? And not necessarily in who we are and our ways of being. And so we need to start to release that productivity is our proof of our worth. We can start to deconstruct hierarchies of value. So, who matters more? What your positionality is, how that moves you forward, how that provides you additional value. And then we can look at valuing these roles equally. So, right now, when we think about certain careers, in specific societies, and if we're thinking about the United States as a model for that, we value folks who are currently sitting in tech positions higher than we value the educators that taught them everything they needed to know in order to get in that position, right? Like we see those hierarchies and they're valued through monetary value. We also need to release the myth of independence versus collectivism. We are all products of nepotism. So that way that we end up on that privilege continuum, how we get to move up and down that list is a product of nepotism. And so this idea that independence is right versus collective action, we need to start reshaping what that looks like, being in it for more than just ourselves. And then binary thinking, that there's good and bad, right and wrong, made to control one another versus nature, making decisions and choices based on the circumstances and the environment. So instead of focusing on, well, if I do this action, here's the equal and opposite reaction that will happen, really thinking about what is necessary and what's around me, what's in my environment, how do those affect my choices? So it's about being very aware of all of the factors. So in this, again, I'm gonna put in the chat our reflection prompt. This is a way for you to think about this at a later time. But we really need to think about disconnecting as not avoidance, but it's liberation from distortion. So when we have a moment, we're going to write about what's the story of control or separation that I'm ready to set down. What's a practice that I no longer need? What's a hustle that I'm doing? What's a way in which I've been moving through this world that may be born out of self-protection? It may have been born out of safety. It may have been born out of even some practices that are traditional to our families because this is the way that we survive. I come from a background of very survivalist thinking, and so many of the things that we do, we know it's not innate to who we are as people. It's not innate to how we function in our family, but outside of our family, when we're in spaces with others, we move in such an individual way for safety. And so there's some practices that we can release that no longer serve us because we are trying to create this decolonized, anti-colonized space. Add that to the chat so that when we have a moment, it's just a good way to kind of reflect back on it. Are there ways that I personally the story of control and separation that exists within me that I'm ready to release. So, what are some of the tools that are available for us as we start to do this practice, right? Because it can't just be, all right, I say I'm going to set it down, and then I have no way to go back and do that. Again, these are a lot of this is about what's innate to us, what's in our deep knowing, but some of these things have been stripped from us, whether through assimilation, through other systems of harm, through other conditions. We may have lost some of these practices. And so here are some of the tools that we can use in order to move us forward. Non-colonized tools helps us remember our ancestral and intuitive ways of being. So our core practices would be ritual and relationships, tending to the land, to elders, and to spirit. Community accountability, repair and restoration over punishment. What does it look like to practice to say, I've made a mistake, I have contributed to harm, and I'm ready to repair that harm? Rest and joy, reclaiming softness as a resistance. Understanding that radical rest is so necessary, and also you deserve it because you take breath, not because you have earned it. There is no work that you need to do to reclaim softness as resistance. There's no work you need to do in order to earn joy. Because you take breath, you deserve rest. Because you take breath, you deserve joy. Embodied intuition, listening to the body's truth and not to institutional validation. So looking outside of the accommodations and the accolades given to us um, from others, but really focusing on what does my body say? What does my body feel in this moment? Thinking about what is the truth that I know for myself. So as you start to think about these tools, one of the reflection practices that we can do is what practice connects you to your own knowing outside of systems of approval and validation? What are things that you may do for yourself? And I know that word ritual, if you come from definitely if you come from a colonized religious practice, can be incredibly challenging to see a word like ritual. But honestly, we all do it every day, right? We all have routines that we use. We all have practices that we do, even if they are not called rituals in particular. That term has been co-opted and used um, to demean and dehumanize people who use and know that rituals are a part of our everyday lives and our everyday practices.
Still
So
you,
start to
Nicole?
unstitch yourself. Oh, yep, it's still me.
It's y'all here getting a Nicole special.
You guys are getting a lot of me. And I want to be honest, and I'm just going to take a minute of transparency as you all, oh, yeah, I'm unmuted. Okay. As you all are getting a lot of me in this moment, I am right before we turned on, my brain decided to turn off and find its own space of exhaustion and life. And it said, oh, let me flip the switch for you. You should be sleepy right now. It's like, this is where I want to bring all of my energy and all of my joy. And so I didn't even practice my own routine this morning of calling back my energy. I just assumed it's there, it's ready for me, it's waiting for me in this space. And so I just appreciate the fact that this is an area in which we can be very authentically and uniquely ourselves. So you are getting a very um, interesting perspective of me today. So, all right. So, as we start to do this work and we are looking at, okay, I'm practicing these things that remove me from some of these colonized mindsets. I'm ready to unstitch myself and returning to unconditional love. I want to practice unconditional love in my life. We need to understand that this is a slow process. We're releasing colonization and colonialism, and it's not even it is sewn into us. But it's not about speed, it's about sincerity. Each act of compassion, reciprocity, and truth telling is a stitch that is there to repair. So again, these acts of compassion and reciprocity and truth telling, they are stitches to repair. Colonization in this process of unstitching colonization means that we are sewing ourselves back to unconditional love. So we are not just leaving this wound, we are not just leaving this space, we are removing a harmful, poisonous piece and going back to a loving, caring, thoughtful piece of ourselves. We return to unconditional love through remembering, reweaving, and relational practice and relational repair. Every time we choose humanity over hierarchy, we return home. So we're going to do a short guided meditation. Love for you all to take a moment to close your eyes, take a deep breath in, let it out. And I want you to imagine yourself unstitching cords of control, unstitching cords, harm, slowly pulling those things apart, removing them from you, unstitching cords, hustle, individualism, seeing them fall away. Then imagine yourself weaving threads of love. And you're weaving these threads to close that wound, these threads of compassion, threads of reciprocity, and truth telling. And closing up that space that no longer serves you. You take a deep breath in. Deep breath out. And return when you're ready.
You all. So we want you to remember that unconditional love is both a spiritual and a political practice, right? Settler colonialism conditions us to forget that we are indebted to one another, to forget that we need the land in order to live, to forget that we are on this planet for joy, to live, to have fun, not to struggle, not to face these man-made systems of oppression, such as settler colonialism. But love, unconditional love, reminds us to remember. It calls you back home into your body. It allows you to nestle in and to feel safe once again. So we want you to begin with where you're at. Let's start with awareness, honesty, and embodied care. When talking about settler colonialism, it's really easy for folks to think they're not engaging in the practice, because, right, they weren't the first ones here on the boat. But if you live in a land in which you are not indigenous to, we need to make sure that we are addressing that with care and compassion and understanding what our story is, what our ancestral story is of where we got, why we're here, where we're at, and then reconnecting back to our ancestors and our indigeneities of that home country. So to close, we're going to do a little breathing exercise that kind of gets us to regulate again. So it's going to be a count of 4. So we're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and we'll do that 3 times. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4. Last one. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold it, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Thank you all for joining us. We are, like I said, we're so excited. This is our first one. What we want to make sure is so today was a webinar. Then for the next 4 Mondays, we will have an Unexamined Me podcast in which we will actually talk about the conditions of settler colonialism, right? So we really wanted to bring hope into this session today in this webinar on talking about how to start stitching ourselves and what are some real life examples of what we've seen and how to do that. The Unexamined Me podcast is going to then take you through 4 weeks of what are the conditions. So the first one that we'll be launching on Monday, we'll have a special guest speaker, Dr. Mary Jo Klinker, in which we'll be talking about the conditions of really the intentional ways in which communities are ripped apart through colonization, and the different ways they show up and how we can use community collaboration and mutual aid to revert back to being whole. And then at the end of the month, we will have a co-power course that will be on our webpage that will kind of walk you through, so what's next, right? How do we dream and envision a new future? And how can you make those changes in your life to detach from settler colonialism? So for now, we're going to stop recording. And we'd love